Thanks for joining us at Camera West TV. I'm Gabriel Binder, appraiser here at Camera West in Walnut Creek, and today I have a very special lens for you all. It's a Konica 35mm f2 UC Hexanon in Leica Thread Mount. These are exceedingly rare lenses, and I've been very eager to see this one in person. We've got this beautiful copy like new in its box, and today we're going to do a full review of it. First off, we're going to take a look at how it was packaged when it was shipped originally from the factory. Then we're going to take a look at how it stacks up against a 35mm f2 Summicron V4, the king of bokeh, upon which this lens was based and is often compared against. And then finally, we're going to put both lenses on a Leica M10R camera to compare their sharpness and their bokeh quality. So let's take a look at what one of these lenses looks like in like new condition in its original packaging. It's shipped in this silver and black striped box with Konica written all over it, and you wouldn't really know that there's too much special about this lens until you see that on the top you have a serial number with just 3 digits. That's because Konica only produced 1,000 of these lenses, and each one is individually numbered. So if we open up the box, we see we have a little illustrated manual in its original plastic, a nice leather pouch, a little Konica branded pouch with the lens hood, and here it is, the Konica 35mm f2 UC Hexanon lens. As you can see, it's finished in beautiful black paint with yellow engravings that certainly mimic the Leica lenses that we're familiar with today. It's got a very nice black paint metal lens cap as well. Standard LTM threaded rear cap. This hood is actually quite nice. It's metal, black painted. And one nice thing about it is that when you mount it to the lens, it actually can rotate like so that you can position these cutouts for where the viewfinder will be so that the hood doesn't block your finder. Now that we've got the lens out of the box, let's talk a little bit about its history. In 1993, Konica released its Hexar AF, a 35mm autofocus rangefinder styled point and shoot camera with an incredibly sharp 35mm f2 lens. And in 1996, they realized demand for classic Leica lenses was skyrocketing, and so they decided to rehouse that AF lens in a manual focus housing built for Leica rangefinders. That lens was a chrome lens, but in 2001, they released a limited set of just 1,000 of these brass body black paint lenses. And this is actually a little smaller than that original chrome lens. This has a 43 filter thread. That chrome one had a 46. It's also a little smaller. You'll see that the chrome one, if you ever see a picture of it, also has knurls on the focusing ring, whereas this is really smooth, really small. One of the first things to note about the lens is that it's not actually in Leica M mount. It's in Leica L39, LTM, Leica Thread Mount. There's many names for this screw mount. Because of that, that means that this lens can be attached directly to many classic Leica Thread Mount cameras like this 1950s 3C, making the Konica Hexanon one of the highest performance lenses available for Leica Thread Mount cameras. But let's say you're much more interested in attaching your Hexanon lens to an M mount camera. Well, it's easily done with one of these simple adapters that converts LTM lenses to M mount. Simply screws on like so, and now you have a lens that will connect directly to M mount cameras. Now it's time for the part we've all been waiting for, comparing the UC Hexanon against the Summicron V4 king of bokeh. As you can see, the lenses are almost identical in size. The Leica is perhaps just a hair taller, and of course we do have the M mount adapter on this Hexanon lens to make the comparison fair. In terms of the overall look of the lenses, the Konica has a glossier finish to its black paint, of course over that full brass construction. The Leica has a more modern looking, flatter or satin finish black paint. Still quite handsome, but perhaps not as distinctive. Both have white standard engravings with yellow, obviously the Hexanon taking a cue from Leica's pattern there. Other than that, I would say that the aperture ring on the Leica is a little bit easier to use. You can move it just with one finger, whereas the Konica takes a more deliberate touch. It requires 2 fingers to adjust it. The focus damping on the Konica is beautiful, really smooth, very well damped. Focus is certainly smooth on this copy of this Summicron. I'm going to give the edge actually to the Konica in this regard. Both have a tab to aid with focusing, which is good because the focusing ring is so small on both of these lenses. From the front, you'll see that the Konica has a bigger front element as well as larger type. You see that bright red UC denoting that this lens has Konica's ultra coating on all 12 air-to-glass surfaces. And of course, most importantly, you see that this is number 402 out of 1000 of the limited run. So, how do these lenses compare in terms of their outright image quality? Well, taking a look at those tests we made, they both have incredible center sharpness, although I do have to give a slight edge to the Summicron, and that might be down to the contrast more than anything else. The Summicron also outperforms the Hexanon very slightly in corner sharpness, both wide open at f2 and at 5.6. But both of these lenses are so sharp that you will go blind trying to tell the difference between them. It's much more interesting to take a look at the subjective qualities of this lens, namely the bokeh rendering. In my estimation, the Leica King of Bokeh 35 Cron, the version 4, does hold on to its title. It maintains the throne. It has a beautiful, stunning bokeh rendering that is very soft and distinctive at the same time. The Konica nearly matches it for bokeh quality. It is excellent, but it is ever so slightly more edge defined, and the shape of the bokeh gets a little bit less circular as you get out to the edges. In fact, I think one of the biggest differences in rendering of these two lenses actually comes down to the Summicron's ability to focus down to 0.7 meters rather than the 0.9 of the UC Hexanon. That may seem trivial, but in fact, when you're trying to get areas out of focus with 35mm lenses, every little bit matters, and the Summicron's ability to throw your background out of focus more, by nature of it focusing closer, definitely helps it maintain that bokeh advantage. So, should you buy a Konica UC Hexanon 35mm f2? Absolutely, if you have the opportunity. Is it a better lens than the 35 Cron V4? It is not. The V4, in my opinion, ever so slightly edges it both into the technical performance of its sharpness and in the subjective performance of its bokeh. The closer focusing distance is the icing on the cake that, for me, allows the V4 to maintain its place on the throne and maintain its moniker as the king of bokeh. However, this Konica lens is extremely rare, extremely beautiful in its black paint over brass construction. It has beautiful focus damping, it has great ergonomics, and it fits on any Leica LTM or other thread mount camera. That alone makes this lens an excellent addition to any Leica or rangefinder collection. If you can get your hands on one of these 1 of 1000, absolutely do it. Thanks for taking the time to look at this UC Hexanon with us. We're going to have more quality content coming for you very soon.